Australia. You've heard of it as the place with the Harbourfront Bridge, the Sydney Opera House, the Great Barrier Reef, the beaches, the mountains, the waterfalls, etc. And they're also known for, their koalas, kangaroos, and wombats. I'm thinking, should that be my home for the next 4 years while I study pharmacy, medicine, or dentistry, for example, or anything else? Well, I'm going to share with you my 5 tips of why you should study abroad in Australia. So number one reason you should probably apply is all you need is a high school diploma. Unlike Canadian and American universities, which need an undergrad to apply, you don't need one to enter the pharmacy program in Australia. In saying that, the Canadian and American pharmacy programs are doctorates. The one in Australia is a Bachelor of Pharmacies. So keep that in mind. If you're in America and you want to study abroad and get a Bachelor's of Pharmacy, it likely won't be accepted when you come back to America to write your exams. However, in Canada, they do accept Bachelor's of Sciences in Pharmacy in order to become a registered pharmacist. The number 2 reason is it's not as costly as you might think. The minimum wage in Australia is about $22 an hour. And if you're going for something like pharmacy, for example, pharmacy students have their own set rates. So when I was working, I was making about $35 an hour on Saturdays, $40 an hour on Sundays, and then during the weekdays, I was making around $27 an hour. And on public holidays, it's double your pay. Whereas in Canada, I think they do some time and a half thing. You're probably not gonna have enough to basically maybe pay each tuition each year. You're gonna have to highly be dependable either from your savings or maybe your parents to pay for it. But it is doable just to pay for rent, food, anything. If you just pick up like 2 shifts a week and 2 8-hour shifts a week, that honestly should last you. And I think by the end of my 4th year, I had almost 20 grand left in the bank account, which I used to pay for 1 semester, obviously. That was not from working way too many hours, and that was also including paying rent and getting food, and also just for pleasure going out, gas as cars as well, for example. Now rent is also quite expensive. They do a different way of paying rent there. They do it either weekly or bi-weekly. So when I was in Australia, I had a shared house, and I think my rent ended up being about $200 bi-weekly. I also stayed on student residence, and that was way more expensive. So student residence, I was paying $400 something bi-weekly. If it's your first year going there, I would strongly recommend doing residency first. It's just simpler, and it's a great way to make friends because there's always parties going on at university. I would recommend staying on residency because this is the way you can make friends. And once you make those friends, you'd be like, hey guys, you want to get a shared house next year or something like that? And yeah, and you've already lived with that person, so you kind of have an idea of what they're like. And then number 3, it's obvious. The weather is just so much better in Australia. It's always sunny. It's always hot. Even during the winter, if you live in Canada, it's equivalent to like living here in the fall. So saying that the houses are not insulated, they're built to keep the heat out. So when you're looking at houses, just make sure you have a heater on hand and extra blankets and cover up. That's when you'll really feel the cold. So this is the good thing when I was studying in Australia, is there was really good work-life balance. Reading weeks in Australia are 2 weeks, okay? And the time between semesters, you get a full month off. There's always something to do. There's always something to do in Australia. Whether you go hiking, whether you want to go partying and drinking, there's like endless bounds of activity as well. Another thing you might be wondering is, will the quality of education be good? And from my personal experience, it was great. I felt like having an undergrad in Canada gave me a competitive advantage against other people within that program, because a majority of those people are going to be 18-year-olds who just graduated high school, to be honest, because like I just said, you can go straight from high school into that program. From my experience when I studied in Canada, professors and stuff, they don't give a shit about you. Australia, they're really forgiving. They want you to succeed. That's the impression I got. Like, for example, I heard recently that the Leslie Dan Pharmacy in U of T, they are starting to charge people if they miss an exam with the reason of being sick, for example, and you have to pay extra money to rewrite it, like if you want to reschedule it. Yeah, that doesn't happen in Australia. Australia, they'll reschedule it for you, no problem. I think my last piece of advice is, if you can do it, do it. I know it takes like a day to fly over there. It's a long journey from home. But honestly, it's so worth it. It's the people you'll meet, the things you'll learn, and it's I always tell people this with Australia versus Canada, right? In Canada, you live to work, basically. In Australia, I feel like the philosophy is you're there, you work to live. And it's honestly true. Like, you can work a few days shifts a week, and that's enough to last you to survive on, to go out and have fun, meet people. Even studying time, it's not too brutal in terms of studying. You'll always have a good work-life balance. And like I said, their reading week is like 2 weeks. Use that 1 week to go have fun, and the other week to catch up. It's honestly a good experience, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. If you do decide to go to Australia, my one advice is go live. Go live, make friends, and have a good time. Yep. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them for you. Thanks.